Well, that
achieve.
we're a failure if we haven't.
Yeah, and the fact is that most people haven't. The United States
Well,
is
and most
mired
people
in
aren't.
inequality.
They can't.
No,
It's not even an option.
not an option. Half of the country is considered quote unquote near poor. What that really means is if we look at real living standards in the United States, that means half the country is poor. Most likely, most of the country is poor when you have many individuals, the vast majority, making $30,000 a year or less. We know that in the United States, you can't get far with that. You can't move up, quote unquote, on an income like that. And really what we try to get at is how American exceptionalism and the American dream cloud our ability to understand the process that is making all of this occur. Why is it that half of the country is near poor? We think it's because capitalism is inherently exploitative and exploits labor for the profits of the few. And that's what we're really trying to demystify when we talk about these narratives of appreciation.
So the other thing about the kind of myth of the self-made man or woman is that in almost all cases it's a lie, as Trump is the perfect
no one's a
example,
self-made
because
person.
it's based on inherited wealth and inherited privilege.
Right.
White.
Yes, exactly.
They're talking about white supremacy.
Many capitalists, even Jeff Bezos and these more liberal types, they like to talk about how they came from nothing. But really, we know that inheritance is a huge reason why wealth is accumulated for particular individuals at the expense of none. We see all these Oxfam World reports that shows it's impossible for these numbers to exist, while at the same time, all these self-made individuals are coming up and talking about how they've made it. No,
Well,
actually, you had it.
Social mobility in the United States is almost impossible. It's very rare in any real sense. You talk about philanthropy and nonprofit, what you call the nonprofit industrial complex.
Right.
You make some good points.
Yeah, the nonprofit industrial complex is basically the institutional mechanism of philanthropy. It is mostly private. There are foundations that are tax exempt, which ultimately provide tax breaks for the wealthiest individuals in this country. They serve a particular purpose. Usually they are targeting some perceived or real social problem. And what they do is they channel energy of the masses into acceptable forms of protest or acceptable forms of so-called resolutions to problems. So we have, for example, the Gates Foundation, which I've talked to many people that I've worked with, I'm in the social work field, and they think it's an amazing thing. They think it's a wealthy capitalist who's giving his money that he's earned, right? So this whole notion of the American dream
again. In
again.
the book, it justifies the wealth.
Exactly. And what people don't understand is the Gates Foundation, in its operations in Africa, have done a lot to prevent things like subsidized healthcare from occurring because they're funneling private dollars, a lot of which are our tax dollars, into ventures that essentially privatize healthcare in places like Mozambique.
Again, it sets the parameters of what acceptable philanthropy or charity is, and you have a quote, in 2000, 60% of the foundation board members were men, 90% were white. They may have a few program officers who are people of color, but it's trustees, the people who determine how those grants are given, come out of the ruling elite. And so you have the foundations setting the agenda for art, for culture, for research. Try and get a grant from the Ford Foundation or any other large foundation, and it is going to be vetted. It's going to, so the funding is used under the guise of benevolence to essentially buttress the system itself.
Exactly, and it's this notion of charity, this idea that these wealthy board members and trustees in fact care about these issues, when in fact most nonprofits and foundations, their roots are really in response to social upheaval. A lot of the nonprofits in the United States that exist are responses to revolutionary movements like the Black Panther Party. Internationally, it was a response to the Cold War, which the United States and its capitalist partners saw as really a war against alternative economic system and socialism. And a lot of foundations serve the purpose of actually making oppressed people here in the United States and around the world dependent upon structures.
They would fund labor unions or the AFL-CIO was another this that were quote unquote anti-communist, but it was really a way to destroy radical or leftist movements. I just want to close. Clearly, the ideology of neoliberalism has lost its currency, and yet it appears that that myth of American individualism, of the ability to work hard, still remains pretty powerful, don't you think?
It is. It is very powerful. And I think in the age of Trump, in this age of neoliberalism, where we're seeing a steep decline in the legitimacy of the system as a whole, we're seeing, especially the Democratic Party, but the two-party system as a whole, in complete disarray and literally shoving themselves into the forefront of popular discourse with this deep desire to protect and to preserve American exceptionalism. We heard during the campaign in 2016, Donald Trump said, "Make America great again," and Hillary Clinton said, "We don't need to make America great again. It's already great." When you watch the corporate media about Russia, when they're talking about Russia, or talking about anything that Trump does, really what they're saying is we're embarrassed by Donald Trump. They're not saying that they oppose the policies that are actually taking place. They're embarrassed by him. They're embarrassed that he is not exceptional, that he is not their definition of exceptional.
And we'll stop there, because he certainly isn't. Thank you. That was journalist Danny Haiphong.